Okay, we are here today with Dani from Cradle of Filth at Alcatraz Music Festival. Thank you for having us. Next week you will be playing an 18-plus show at Coventry. I was wondering, is there any difference with a show like today, or is it someone that the organizer decides? Is it something that the band will do?
Actually, we were supposed to be playing a festival called Altfest on the Sunday, which was cancelled. And for some ungodly reason, someone at Altfest thought it'd be a good idea to a warm-up show the day before, which is great for us, but I couldn't see the logic behind it, because it was essentially taking away 1,000 fans from the day that Satyricon were playing. But nevertheless, that gig is still going ahead despite the fact that Altfest was cancelled. It's at a nightclub, hence we don't choose whether it's 16, 18, 21, you know. Sometimes it happens in America. But it's cool because for some reason they're only charging £5, it's like €6 for the show. So obviously sold a lot of tickets, and it's going to be very up close and personal, no support band. So lots of Cradle fans are flocking from all around the country.
The last time you played in the region of Kortrijk was in 1996, if I'm not mistaken, when you played at a gig called With a Dragon's Blaze. So a long time ago. So I was wondering.
In Coventry?
No, in Kortrijk. So in this area.
Yeah. Okay. I remember. Yeah, that's a long time ago. Yeah.
If you compare Cradle of Filth and your life, like 18 years ago, has a lot changed?
Yes and no. I mean, my life's changed. 18 years older, for a start. Well, the lineup's obviously changed. We're actually playing tracks from that era. But the mentality hasn't, the fire hasn't changed. The weather certainly has. It's pissing with rain at the present. I hope it stops before we go on, just because it'll mess up my hair.
I saw that you posted recently on your Facebook page a family picture, so you have become a family man. I can imagine that, like in 1996, that was not the case.
Well, I'm still with the same woman, and my wife. I wasn't married to her in 1996, but I've been with her since 1991, I think. I know, I mean, just in case she's listening. I definitely know. Okay. 1991. So
now you have a daughter who is old enough to come to festivals with you. So does she think she has like the coolest dad in the world?
Well, I'd like to think so, but she probably doesn't. If I was in One Direction, possibly. But she's met a lot of people. I mean, we took her to see, I didn't want to. Took her to see Avril Lavigne, and she got to meet Avril Lavigne backstage, even though Avril Lavigne didn't really want to be photographed and kind of hid. And then she's like met The Prodigy and Gwar and loads and loads of really cool bands. So in that respect, yes, she obviously loves it. She met Danzig the other day, but that was a cool festival because we went to stay with our keyboardist Lindsay for a week after that festival, because that was up in Quebec. It was a great festival as well, great lineup: Motley Crue, Alice in Chains, Venom, Danzig.
A couple of years ago, you did a cover version of the Fire Still Burns from Twisted Sister. So I guess you're kind of a fan. Will you try to check him out?
I'd love to, but we're flying back in the morning.
Okay.
See, I was really looking forward to tomorrow because there's Arch Enemy, and Elisa is a friend of mine and Lindsay's, the new singer. Sacred Reich are playing, and obviously Wasp and Twisted Sister. Strangely enough, The Fire Still Burns, we did a cover of that about 2 weeks before they approached us and said, there's a Twisted Sister tribute coming out. Would you like to write a song for it? And we said no, because we've got one, here you go. And JJ French actually said that was his favourite track off the whole thing, which I was like, wow. that's cool, because that was the second band I ever went to see in concert.
Earlier this year there was a re-release of the Total Fucking Darkest demo. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, our old guitarist Paul Ryan, who left the band back in 1995, has become works for the agency group. So he's become quite a very well-known big promoter. And I got back in contact with him somehow. We went out for a curry and a beer, and he suggested this idea of putting out our demos via Maudgrim, which was Nihil, who used to run Cacophonous. Cacophonous was the label that did our first two records, and in fact we took them to court, but that wasn't Nihil's. You know, he didn't run it, he was just the label manager, and he left shortly afterwards. So I agreed to it, and since then, not only did we put that out to great success, because we got to remaster it and make it, you know, quite substantial, lots of old photos and some stuff that I didn't even know existed from old rehearsals and what have you. But Paul Ryan has then since become a manager for my new band, my other band, Devilment. So everything's quite incestuous in my life, but in a virtual way, not in a realistic way.
The remastered release also includes one track from the abandoned first album.
It wasn't abandoned. It was abandoned in the respect that at the time we were signing to a label called Tombstone Records, who were basically shit, and they wouldn't pay for the master to be released, and subsequently, because back in that day, tape was really expensive. Well, it wasn't that expensive, but expensive enough. They were given enough time, and so it was completely wiped, recorded over. They reused the tape. So that was the only thing we were allowed to take out of the studio at the time. So bad in one respect that we lost something that is now confined to the ether and will never be heard of again, but good in respect that we could have signed to a really, really shit label, and I think that would have been the death of the band. It would have, you know, died in the womb.
Dusk and Her Embrace and Cruelty and the Beast are two of my all-time favorite metal albums. Can we hope for a tour in the next couple of years for like the 20th anniversary with the entire albums being played?
Well, there's been talk of that. At present we're writing a new record. We're halfway through that. In fact, we've got too many songs, and we're not looking at doing a double album because, you know, it's just silly. But the songs, and I've said this in the past, but they really do herald that spirit, because we've got two new guitarists. And it's just, I mean, if I played it to you, you'd go, oh my god, that's fucking fantastic. Really intricate, really melodic, but fast, dramatic. I'm really into it. It's great.
So the next album should be coming out in 2015, I read in some interviews. Is that correct?
May 2015. That's the aim.
In 2001, you did Cradle of Fear with Alex Chandon, the movie when you were acting. You also worked on a Dario Argento soundtrack. You did one song. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you're kind of a horror movie fan. Do you want to do something more in that direction in the future?
Well, we were going to. I actually did another thing as well, like a horror voiceover for with Doug Bradley and Alex Cox, the movie producer, and stuff like various people. Anyway, called Dominator, which is like a manga type thing about demons, etc., etc., as they always are. There was talk of doing about Cradle of Fear 2, but the band became very busy, and it just became very difficult. So now we just sort of indulge ourselves with, you know, as much as we'd like to call iconic sort of horror-themed videos. But yeah, if the opportunity came up, definitely. I know quite a few people in the movie industry, and I know people who write scripts, and there's always been talk about doing something like that. But the thing is now, well, even then I was busy, but now with, you know, 2 bands and various other commitments, it's I wouldn't know when to. Maybe in a few years' time when I've got to hang up my cloak.
You, You mentioned the video clips in the past. You had some clips live from the Cradle to Enslave. I think it was banned in a couple of countries.
We're not in Belgium. Strangely enough, we were in Belgium. Me and the previous drummer, one of the previous drummers, Adrian Erlandson, and we were sitting in a bar because it was I think we were doing Press for Midian, and it was on TV, and it was the full uncensored version. And we were like, wow.
Yeah, and they played it on TMF. It's like the Belgian version of MTV, and if I'm not mistaken, it was in fact one of the few countries where it was not banned. I was talking to your tour manager before about your tour in Russia. Perhaps not the best timing ever to go to Russia, but you can't plan some things like in advance. Is it very different to play in a country like Russia? You played in Asia as well. Do you have to be more careful about some of the things that you do on stage?
Definitely. There was a recent mishap with Behemoth, but I think that was more to do with them being a little bit blasé about, going into with their itineraries and stuff like that. I don't think it was anything really too religious, but yes, I would be very careful about some things because we're playing quite remote places this time. I think we're doing like almost a month. I know Lacuna recently went out there. They didn't have any problems, but that was prior to this whole Putin, and his little regime, etc. But like you say, you can't plan it. And we had some, a few people from Holland were obviously a little bit perturbed about the whole incident, saying, "Oh, I'm going to burn all my Cradle of Filth records. How dare you go over, you traitors!" And it's like, you don't even know who these people were. Nobody knows who they were. That's got nothing to do. That's like blaming anybody for blaming the Vietnamese for Pol Pot or something, or the German race for Hitler. Bad things happen, and it's usually a small minority, and I can't see how that affects. Some of these places we're playing are like thousands and thousands of miles away, and those Cradle of Filth fans, the last thing on their mind is anything to do with that.
In the past, you did some of my favorite covers. You did like Black Metal by Venom. You did Hallowed Be Thy Name by Maiden. You did a song from the Sisters of Mercy as well. Do you have more covers planned? Do you have bands or songs that you would like to cover one day, be it live or on a record?
I've got a huge amount of like thrash classics I'd like to do. I'd like to do Confessions by Possessed. There's loads of things I'd like to do. I'd like to do a cover of Creeping Death. But I think Cradle, we've done quite a few, so I think we're going to leave it for a little while. With my other band, Devilment, we just actually did a cover of Midnight Oil's Beds Are Burning. And it's got Bam Margera from Jackass singing on it as well. And it's really, he actually sounds a lot like me, to be fair. It's really good actually. We've made it very dark. Obviously, we've reversed actually the whole melody, so it sounds more like The Exorcist. But yeah, I mean, there's a huge list in my mind that I'd like to do.
I have a last question. It has been 20 years since the debut album came out. Did you ever imagine at that time still being in a band like CRADLE of Filth, still being on the road, being a metal star or rock star or whatever?
I don't know really, because most people when they start a band, no matter how small, and they're playing, to 5 people in a bar, they always have this vision in their head of them, on a big stage, playing to thousands of people. So with that respect, I always sort of kind of saw that in my mind. Whether that was going to happen or not is another matter altogether. But I guess not. No, not 20 years down the line, knowing that I was, I had a family and that the band was, going from strength to strength. But it's a good thing.